A lot of banks can now buy and sell crypto, not just the big ones. In 2025, the market became available to them. Key banks and even very large US banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo are talked about. Everyone is on board, but it's strange that for years, central bankers have been pushing CBDC while you say that public blockchains won't be the main focus of our work to keep control of these platforms. Now they are trying out real public blockchain-based networks for monetary policy that is based on blockchain. These smart contracts let networks handle tasks like buying assets in real time, getting interest on reserves, and even taking back assets that have been taken back. This happened in May. Also, the OC, the FDIC, and even the Fed pretty much told banks they were fine. They told banks in 2025 that they could work with crypto, use crypto, and even offer services based on crypto. Things are already crazy enough right now. Let's go over here. The UAE's first bank to accept cryptocurrency is Newrak Bank. This was made public on the 29th. People can now trade AED for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and even XRP. From now on, this will always happen. More and more banks are going to do the same thing. Through a banking app, they will offer crypto-based services like trade, borrowing, loans, and other stuff like that. This is how the big banks keep their power. What is going to happen if they don't do this? They'll be a long way behind. It's going to happen soon. This is where the big change starts to show. Let's go back in time and see what makes Rack Bank so special. This is great work by XRP from 2021. I hope I got that name right. Rack Bank is here. It's also known as the National Bank of Ras Al Amareh. As a side point, an emirate in the UAE is connecting to Ripple at the global bank-centric blockchain network, so Access Bank customers can make real-time global money transfers. As a side note, Ripple has a link with Access Bank in India. Rack Bank in the UAE India will be able to get fast blockchain payments from Ripple. It's crazy because we keep making these long-term promises. Yes, that is still very important because of what we know about crypto. People say, oh, that article is so old. When we use an old story about Ripple, like when we're looking into something or talking about XRP, it doesn't carry any weight. It really does mean everything. One view is that if we go back in time and see how things are now, that must be when it all began, right? Ripple was in the lead. They were in the middle of everything. All of this is being brought up now because we also have it here. Momo and Zan Bank will be Ripple's first clients in the UAE to use blockchain-based payments, the company said. There's been talk about the UAE for a long time. The real start was in 2020. Besides that, they were still making big moves in the UAE before that. For now, don't worry about that. They are still making a lot of noise in the UAE. We also look at this page when we want to remember current events. It's about the Clarity Act and how the crypto market is set up. Thanks a lot to Chad Steinreber for making it. Note that while the bill is mostly about crypto, it also lets banks use DT and digital assets for things like loans, market making, and running blockchain nodes. That quote is also here, and it tells the SEC to set up a little playground for creativity. But this pretty much let banks go ahead. This is all being talked about now because it is clear that there is a shift. What kind of change are we talking about? To begin with, we can say that central banks are testing blockchain. And if central banks are using blockchain, then other banks are too. People like JP Morgan and Bank of America are among these big names in the business. Now we have news from Ripple. Things are changing. Banks give blockchain money. Since 2020, more than $100 billion has been put into blockchain companies. Every month, $700 billion is put into safe coins. It is thought that tokenized assets will be worth $18 trillion by 2033. There is a new study that we did with CB Insights and UK CBT.org that looks at how partnerships, smart investments, and new use cases are changing the future for financial institutions. In 2025, everything will be different. Banks are putting money into blockchain in this way. There's no doubt about the shift. A lot of money from traditional sources is moving into digital assets. This is because blockchain makes it easier, faster, and cheaper to get in. It also makes it possible to use money in new ways. Demand and acceptance of blockchain by institutions are climbing quickly. A study by Ripple found that 90% of world financial leaders believe blockchain will have a big or very big impact on the field in the next 3 years. The rise of blockchain is being driven by its proven benefits, such as almost instant payments, cheap transactions, availability 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and more openness. The banks and other financial firms are no longer thinking about how it will impact them. Instead, they are making the technology an important part of, these days, finance. At the center of this are blockchain and money. It is called a blockchain. Cryptocurrencies, stable coins, and even tokenized real-world assets all use this technology to work. It lets value move like information does now, without a central authority, in a safe and open way. We call this the Internet of Value. As an example, let's look at capital spending. It is much easier and cheaper to send money from one country to another with blockchain because it does not use middlemen like other payment systems do. Business deals can be, it is clear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Building and programming, smart contracts, and automatic compliance are just a few of the ways that this opens up new levels of market access and liquidity for businesses and institutions. The future of finance will be faster and more open to everyone thanks to blockchain. This means that it can meet the needs of both new and old markets. We also have the highlight, of course. Blockchain is also being used by financial institutions to make complicated jobs easier. Lesson: the risk that comes with old technology and find new ways to use digital assets, like a small share of our. And with new updates to the XRP ledger, automatic market makers, a permissioned decentralized exchange, and clearer rules, it's now easier than ever for banks to use decentralized finance in a way that is legal and scalable. So, let's add the institutional wave to the XRP record so that DeFi can happen at the institutional level. People use blockchain in banks, companies that are changing how digital assets are kept, how RWA tokens are used, and how digital assets are tracked are getting money from banks. This is a smart move as the blockchain industry grows. Most of the time, goods are infrastructured. The study looks at all the deals and investments that more than 8,000 blockchain companies and 1,800 banks made over the course of 5 years. Direct investments, mergers and acquisitions, and strategic relationships are all examples of this. This is from CB Insights. During the years 2020-2024, 33 mega-round funding deals worth more than $100 million were linked to blockchain and were part of a study. Some of the biggest banks in the world, like JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and even SBI Group, were big backers and helped to build companies by giving them money more than once. Financial infrastructure based on blockchain. Most people used it for business infrastructure like trade, staking, and tokenization. They also used it for blockchain global payments and keeping their digital assets safe. When banks make smart investments, they change their long-term plans for digital assets. This gives us a better picture of how this will affect the whole financial system. That's crazy to see because it shows that the biggest companies that were against crypto for a long time are now on board. This is crazy to see. Of course, Bitcoin, and in the future there will need to be rules about banking services. Financial institutions in the FIA use blockchain to spread out their holdings, accept crypto payments, offer security services, tokenize assets, and do other things. You need to have digital goods now. For this reason, banks need to invest in their buildings, work with fintech companies, and come up with new financial services to stay in business. New cutting-edge tech will help banks